that if you knew every person, really knew them on this earth, you would find love in your heart for every single person, no matter how bad they are, because you would understand them. It doesn't mean you would agree with them, but you would when you understand them, you would love them. The more we understand the men that we actually marry, the men that we're actually with, the more we will love them, and the more they will love us.
Welcome back to the Fascinating Womanhood channel, where we talk about everything that has to do with femininity and building strong, long-lasting, loving relationships. I am Cherry Lynn, and I'm here with my mom, Dixie Amberlyn Forsyth. Hi.
Hi.
So we are doing a bit of a series on understanding men. I feel like we could talk about this every week.
Yeah, we probably should. Yeah.
We've done a few videos on understanding men, and today we're going to do a video about sympathetic understanding. This is part of understanding men, and this is also in your book. And is it in both books? Can you clarify?
Yes, it's not as specifically outlined in Timeless as it is in Classic, but it is there. Okay. And what it is, in a nutshell, is learning how to understand your man in the role of listening, actually listening to what he's saying and being sympathetic to what he's saying. And sympathetic understanding is fantastic for understanding anyone, your sons, your fathers, your brothers, sisters, anybody. This is a skill that you can learn in your life to help people. But in raising children, it's fantastic. Okay,
well, so why is sympathetic understanding important specifically to understanding men?
I'm glad you asked that, because it is so important. And it's actually, we're kind of the same way. If somebody understands you and you feel like they're really listening to you, like, have you ever had something that you really was deep in your heart, either thoughts or feelings or fears or anything, and then you expressed it to someone and they looked really interested, like they really want to understand how good that feels? When you do that, how much closer you feel to that person. If you feel that someone actually understands you. So we're going to give you 3 ways to do that, because how do you say, well, I was listening, but he doesn't feel that you're listening. So how do you do it?
So are you saying it makes the man, the reason why this is valuable is it not only makes the man feel closer to you and more connected to you, but it also makes him, in a sense, kind of love you more? What do you mean by?
Yeah, I mean, bonded to you. Like if when you develop this, and it has to be sincere, obviously, he will feel like he cannot live without you, more appreciative of you. And it may not even be maybe conscious, it may not be conscious, but the effect is the same. When anybody feels like someone understands them, truly understands them, their heart, they want to be around that person. They don't want them to go.
And we hear so many women say things like, him and I, we're growing apart, or he's pulling away, or things haven't been very happy between us for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's so hard to answer those questions because there's so many answers. But I do think from what you're describing, this topic is a really big one for those types of situations.
It's huge. And we can say, well, he needs to do this or this. You can't make another person do it. But what you can do is look at the things you can do. And there's a lot. There's actually quite a bit. What are some things you can do to strengthen your relationship? It just isn't about, well, I did more than he did, or any of those kinds of things. It's more like, what can I do? And sympathetic understanding is easy in a sense because we want someone to do that with us.
Exactly.
Okay. So this isn't like rocket science, but some people don't know how to do it.
Right.
They're not sure how. So we're going to give you 3 ways. Number 1, when he starts talking to you about something and you're wanting to really understand it, reflect back to him what you think you heard him say.
Your country?
Brianna.
Your country? My country? Jordan, you make us sound so far apart.
Like he says something, you say, Okay, that's really interesting. Are you saying that this, and this? So you're reflecting back, like you're wanting to make sure you understand it right. And when you do that, he'll feel like you really want to understand. Yeah, you're not just saying, where he doesn't know how much you're listening, what it means to you when you reflect it back. So you're saying without you doing anything, this guy said this. We all know how to do it, but we don't always apply it.
This is a basic tip for becoming a better listener in general.
Yes.
You can do this with anyone. You can practice it with anyone and involve a little bit of your intuition as well. Because if he's fired up about something and he's telling you something, you might not want to do too much of that. He may just need you to ask some valuable questions about what he's saying. Because I can see if he's like kind of ranting about something, you might not want to necessarily like, are you saying this? Because that might just frustrate him, right?
It depends how you say. You don't have to say the words, are you saying? And he may not, let's say he's not angry about something. He's excited about something. Or he's worried about something, anything. You can say, okay, I really want to understand this. When you say this, do you mean this?
Yeah.
It's showing him that you're actually listening. How many times do people hear someone's talking to you and you only sort of half listen?
Exactly.
Like,
Or you don't know exactly what they're talking about, or there's something that's confusing and you just let it go because you're like,
and even if you do, they don't, and even if you do understand, they don't know you're listening.
Right.
Number 2, try to imagine yourself in his place. How might you feel in the same situation? Again, that is not terribly hard, especially for women who care about how people feel anyway. Just think, how would I feel if I was presented this opportunity? And you think, I'd be pretty excited. So then you can get excited for him, or you can be empathetic, or whatever the occasion calls for. It may be that he really wants to get a new area of his career, start something new. He's really wanting to do something, but he's afraid he won't succeed. He might fail, and he wants you to believe in him.
You know something, Larry? You ought to be President of the United States.
And again, like you said, some of that is intuition, the fact that you know this person, but it's actually listening to him, and then try to imagine how you would feel. These are all relatively simple things, but we don't always do them. Okay, then the third one is, in your own words, reflect back, is this what you're saying? So that you know that you understand it exactly. And instead of what we often get is, well, I thought you meant this. And that isn't what he meant at all.
Well, there's 2 different tips about reflecting back. So that's really important, it sounds like. What's the difference between the first one and the last one?
You're saying, did you say this? And then the third one, in your own words, you're saying, okay, so you're saying this.
And insects not only destroy crops, but they carry diseases too.
Gee, Larry, this is really important work you're doing, isn't it?
So it's like a conclusion.
A conclusion.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a conclusion. Okay. And then what we're saying too is there's also 3 very positive outcomes for you learning to listen. I went over some of this with Bob because he's the psychologist, and how he, from a man's point of view, how he feels when that happens. He says when someone feels understood, they get in touch more with their own feelings better as they verbalize and share feelings. Because as we know, in Fascinating Womanhood, men don't tend to be as good at verbalizing feelings. Things, yes, but not feelings. As he talks about it, he has a better opportunity to get in touch with his own feelings.
I think it's important to note too that if he is talking to you about something, especially the man that is not as verbal, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And recognizing he's talking to me about this, he's opening up to me, that should give you the motivation to try to follow these tips to understand him and listen to him, because this is a good thing. Some men are different. Some men are really verbal and they talk things through all the time, but I don't know about you, but I think most men are not like that.
More men have trouble verbalizing.
Yeah.
And even whether they do or they don't, they all want to feel understood.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going with this video, is they want to feel understood on as deep a level as possible. Whether he's excited about something, whether he hopes for something and needs you to feel like you're on board with him. And these are personal things he wouldn't share with just somebody he's sitting on a plane with. That can bring you closer. So number one, he understands, gets in touch with his own feelings more as he expresses them.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because for me, that's not true for me. I'm already in touch with how I feel. So, okay. So number two, you will understand him on a deeper level when you hear his thoughts and feelings and sense his thoughts and feelings. And when you do that, you will not tend to be so hard on him or impatient, which is an advantage for you, and it's definitely an advantage for him, for both. And she'll think, oh, I know why he's acting that way. It's because he's worried about this. Today's the day that he had that interview. So of course he's going to be a little bit on edge. And you'll make allowances for that when you understand him. Ever since I was little, I remember my mother telling me that if you knew every person, really knew them on this earth, you would find love in your heart for every single person, no matter how bad they are, because you would understand them. It doesn't mean you would agree with them, but you would when you understand them, you would love them. The more we understand the men that we actually marry, the men that we're actually with, the more we will love them, and the more they will love us. Mm-hmm. So that's number two. And then number three is actually my favorite, because he will learn to trust you so much more, and he'll feel closer to you than you ever thought possible. He'll also start taking down his wall of reserve. Which is, I would say, virtually all men have walls of reserve when you meet them. And sometimes they build up even more after you meet them. It's a protection against their heart. They protect themselves from perceived danger to their emotions, to their heart. Because contrary to what a lot of people believe, that men aren't as emotional, Bob says they're actually more emotional than women, but they keep this wall around it to protect it. Whereas women feel freer to cry at movies, to get emotional. Men feel a lot of things, but they put this barrier and say, we don't feel as much, but they do. They're sensitive creatures. So he'll take down his wall of reserve and trust you. And when a man takes down his wall of reserve for you and he trusts you that much, you better take care of it. You better not betray it, because it'll be thicker than ever, if you betray that. But he will feel like he cannot live without you, which is essential in building this lifelong love affair. You want to be a couple that is just emotionally connected to each other. Mm-hmm. Those are the very best kind of relationships. So
can you give an example of what sympathetic understanding, whether it's a story or a visual?
Well,
I don't think I came up with
one
any.
of the first things that comes to mind is I know a woman whose husband had a lot of kind of private dreams and ambitions for things. He really hoped for some things and was kind of stuck in a rut with what he was doing, his work and everything. And they had a family, and he confided in her. She's the kind of person that you feel like confiding in, because she's really interested in relationships. And he confided in her that his dream was to move to the East Coast of the United States, and then they lived on the West Coast. And he loved the whole politics thing and being near politics, the heart of politics, which she had completely different for her. And she listened to him, and she grew to really understand him and what he really wanted out of his life. And she supported that. And they did move to the East Coast. And a lot of his family thought he'd never amount to anything, because he didn't have a doctoral degree or he didn't have a great college education, but he really made something of himself. And he was so close to her and trusted her, because she understood him, and she listened to his dreams and his passions. And his family, the other people in his life, always just kind of, oh, brother, with him. But she believed in him and listened to him he adores her. He absolutely, but I know her and I'm not surprised. I mean, she's very good at listening to everybody.
But what ended up happening? They ended up moving, and then
They did. They ended up moving, and it was a little scary for those of us who knew her. We thought, "Oh, what's he going to do? He's dragging his family into this," and because they weren't just a newly married couple. It's just the two of them. They had children, and he created a whole business and was very successful out there. She believed in him. She believed in him more than.
So the story is that she listened to his dreams and she supported him in his dreams, and they ended up moving to a place that just at the time did not seem like it made sense, and it ended up resulting in him not only creating a successful business, but it also strengthened their marriage. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah. I mean, I know today they are so close, and the reason I bring that up is because those of us who knew her and knew this story thought, you're going there? Where? Yeah. But we didn't understand him like she did. Right. She listened to him. She knew what his plans were, what his goals were. She didn't just support him, she understood him. And understanding him, she knew that if he got an opportunity, he would go with it and really work hard. And he did. Mm-hmm. And those of us who didn't know him so well thought, oh wow, he made a success of himself. But it wasn't a surprise to her because she knew him. She understood him.
And she trusted him. Yeah.
She trusted him because as she listened to him, she understood and could see it.
Because I could see a lot of women in that same situation saying, this is terrifying. I don't want to move there. It's, there's high crime, or there's there's all these problems.
It was expensive. It was high. It was very expensive to live there. It's even more now. They didn't live in Washington itself. They lived in some of the outer areas, but still super expensive. And
I could see saying something like, what's he doing? What do I do to change his mind? What do I do to, and I'm sure there's so many different scenarios where, this could go different ways, but I love that in this story, she kind of she had faith in him.
She had faith in him partly because she listened to him and she understood what he wanted to do, what he was trying to do. She didn't just hear a superficial thing, hey, let's move here and do this. They had deep conversations, and she believed in him because she understood what it was he wanted to do, how much he had thought it out, what his plans were, and it made sense. The rest of us who didn't get included in all that thought, wow, that seems kind of bold, to move your entire family across the country. But to her, because she understood him and took the time, and it wasn't just one conversation, it was probably many, where she talked to him and she thought, yeah, he says, I really want to do this. And I've been thinking for years about this. And she thought he can do this.
Right.
And of course he did, with her support and her sympathetic understanding, because a lot of women would have probably thought, oh no, we're not doing that. It's too risky. But if they understood him, they might.
Right.
And she did.
So let me ask you this. What about the man that is not opening up, and women are watching this and they're saying, oh, I want to get better at this, but husband just isn't really opening up to me. What's your advice for them?
Maybe you're expecting too much with too little effort. Start with what you have and just start, because everybody wants to be understood. Understand that everybody wants this. I want it. You want it. So start with something little instead of starting with, I want to understand you, so tell me everything. That'll actually make him feel like, whoa, if he's not used to it. So start with something small. If he talks about, say, oh, I had a really great idea at work today. Stop everything and listen.
Okay.
And start, and don't expect anything. No strings. That's the important thing about fascinating womanhood. No strings. I don't listen to him in order to get him to do something. It doesn't work, and he won't be understood. You have to.
Well, and I like what you said earlier in the video. It has to be sincere and genuine.
Yeah,
and I think that's why it's called sympathetic understanding is because you really do need to genuinely show him that you're interested in what he's talking about. And if you're not interested in what he's talking about, you need to find a way to understand the subject by asking questions. I know sometimes my husband will talk to me about work, and I don't entirely know what he's talking about, but through pieces of conversations, I kind of feel like I know some of the people he works with, and I kind of know what they would, I can kind of anticipate what they would do, even though I've never met them, because I've heard so many stories. And, you know, to me, that's really valuable to be able to connect with him on those things and to be able to have those conversations with him, because I can understand, like you said, I can understand him more. And it takes time to.
It does, especially if you're not used to listening that way. It might take a little bit of time, but start with whatever's in front of you. And by the way, when you are practicing sympathetic understanding, if you can find, and you should find, sincere opportunities to appreciate and admire him, like, wow, that was a fantastic idea.
Gee, when you talk like that, you give me goosebumps.
And again, it's got to be sincere. And or not like that, wow, you really handle a lot in a day. Things like that you observe, and do it a little bit at a time. Your goal is you want to have the closest relationship you can. You're not trying to get him to get a certain job. You're not trying to get him to do something. You want to understand this man and have this deep romantic relationship. That's the goal.
Well, this has been a really, really great topic. I think this is such a valuable discussion. I think we could go on and on, but hopefully these tips are a good introduction to it to get started. And this isn't where it ends. If you haven't read Dixie's book, Fascinating Womanhood for the Timeless Woman, definitely need to read it, because again, this is just a small video that explains one topic in the book. If you really, really want to get better about understanding men, you need to read her book. I'll attach a link to this video, all the places that you can find it, as well as the workbooks and other books that we have in our collections. And we are also on social media very actively, so definitely check out the links to join our Facebook group, see us on Instagram, all the places that you can find us. We're here every week, so don't forget to check back with us next time. If you have a topic that you would like us to cover, definitely drop your suggestions down below. We love to hear from you, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.